So I sent you all, if you didn't watch it, make sure you take some time to watch it this weekend. It's a really powerful presentation. And the reason that I sent it to everybody, it's in the, if you go to the Mortgage Coach New Loan Officer playlist, it's one of the videos that Dave Savage recommends everybody watches. I couldn't agree more. And shame on me for not having people plug into this as part of the process. Going forward, I'll definitely do that. And I'm going to challenge all of you to do what we did with Jonathan. So I work with a business coach on Tim Brahim's coaching group. His name is Mike Stoddart, and Mike wanted to, because Jonathan's just getting going. He wanted, like, hey, would you mind if I did some coaching with you and him? And I said, no, I'd love it. And so we did it. And he wanted him to watch Start with Why, it's not called Start with Why, but he's got a book out that's called Start with Why that was based on that talk. So that's why I keep calling it that. But so then Jonathan watched the video, and then the coach asked Jonathan, he said, okay, well, so tell me why I should work with you. And Jonathan immediately launched into mortgage speak, which is, oh, well, we have great service and great fees, and we close on time, under budget, with no surprises. And we were #1 in customer satisfaction and all that stuff. And the coach goes, did you watch the video? So he's like, well, yeah. And he said, okay, well, you told me the exact opposite of what you're supposed to tell me. And it was just a great experience to recognize what was going on at that moment. Cause I was like, shit, I know this stuff, and I haven't done a good job myself of making sure that you guys know that it should be absolutely part of your repertoire when it comes to selling. And it needs to be part of all of your conversations with new referral partners, existing referral partners, and every new client that you come in contact with. You need to figure out a way to work into the conversation, especially at a time when, we all know it's one of the toughest times. Chris and I were talking about this week. This is easily the toughest market I've experienced since I got in the business. And I probably experienced tougher markets, or markets as tough as this. I just didn't know it at the time because I didn't have anything to compare it to. And the fact that I'm comparing it to the best market we've ever seen ever, where Jacqueline was sending me an email this week, and she said A players, B players, C players, D players, E players, F players, everybody got into the business in 20 and 21, right? Because you could make money, anybody could make money. And now the F players are leaving, and the D's and the E's and the C's are all starting to get out, and the A's and B's are left. And it's okay, because that's the nature of, we need to purge and get the people out of the industry that aren't in it for the long haul anyway. But when it comes to everything that you do, when it comes to working with a buyer and working with a referral partner, it isn't one thing that you can do that'll make the difference. It's everything you do. And everything you do is everything you say, how you show up, whether you called them when you said you would, whether you had a 3 o'clock call and you started it at 2:59 or you started it at 3:03. Big difference. That 4 minutes is everything to a buyer. Everything. They're like, wow, this guy's not very reliable, not very punctual. You're already sending a message. It's everything you say and everything you do, but your ability to connect with that buyer by being able to share with them what's important to you and why you do what you do is just, it can be game changing for everybody. You'll actually connect with that buyer. You'll be able to share with that buyer the reason behind why it is you do what you do. And it reminded me that I need to do a better job as the president of this company of reminding everybody on a regular basis, especially in an environment like the one we're in. I know you guys get recruited every couple hours. And so especially with what's going on in the market right now, we're in an environment where every lender out there is dying to get more originators. And so they're putting as many shiny objects in front of you as they can. Usually that starts with, what I call the recruiting rate sheet. And it's interesting because I had a couple of conversations. I had 3 different conversations with 3 different people this week that subject came up. One was with this coach I work with, that he was on an executive CEO roundtable with a bunch of other CEOs, and they're openly discussing how, what we're doing is we're showing loan officers the lowest rates we can reasonably get away with, knowing that we're going to raise them over the next 60, 90 to 120 days. And that's just what we're doing. And I was like, really? They discussed it openly? He goes, yeah, I've never heard that before. They're actually openly discussing it. And then does everybody know who Ken Perry is from the Knowledge Coop? Ken and I are pretty good buddies, and he was calling me about something else. And so that I brought this subject up, and he goes, oh yeah, everybody's doing it right now. Everybody's doing it. And I was like, wow. I said, I just don't get how people can start a relationship off with deception. And then, I don't know, you just have any integrity. I don't know how people are able to do this. And then it came up in one other conversation that I can't remember who I was having the conversation with. Anyway, it came up 3 different times. It's like, okay, well, I guess this is the thing, and this is what everybody's doing. And that is that's one of the reasons I started this company, is because I had that happen to me. Like the last place that I worked before I said, okay, fuck this, I'm going to start my own company, I'm never going to do that to somebody, is that they lied to me about my comp. They actually lied to me about my comp plan. They said that they were going to take 25 basis points off the top of the loans that we did with this one particular investor because they had negotiated an extra quarter in premium. And I said, yeah, okay, that's cool. And what he meant to tell me was like, well, yeah, I'm taking 25 basis points off the top of every deal that you do. And I was like, that's not what you told me. He sat down to tell me that story when he was getting ready to hand me my first commission check, and had deducted 25 basis points out of all those deals. And I was like, why didn't you just tell me when you hired me? I would have still moved. He's like, oh no, I told you. And I go, dude, now you're just lying to me, because you're telling me now because you know you didn't tell me. And why don't you just admit that you forgot? Do that. Just admit that you forgot to tell me, and I'd be fine. He was like, no, I didn't forget. I told you. I was like, well, now I just think you're a liar. I ended up working for that guy for another 7 or 8 months. And then I started this company. And that's who I am as a person. I want you guys to all, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. That's who I am as a person. And I want you to know what I believe. I believe it's wrong to start a relationship that way. I believe it's wrong to treat people that way. And I'm never going to. So, and what happened to me at all the companies that I worked at is nobody gave a shit about the customer. Closing late was like, oh, well, it closed late. Yeah, no big deal, because nobody had any guarantees or anything. You had to be able to take all the flack that went along with closing late. I literally spent most of my life apologizing for late closings. And like the day before a closing, I knew what was going to happen because we weren't clear to close. We didn't have figures at title. And the day before closing, the phone would ring, and I could hear the girl at the front desk talking to a listing agent going, so Dave, it's so-and-so from such and such. I'm like, shit, they're going to want to know where the figures are at title. Tell them I'll call them back. And then right after that, I get a call a minute later from the title company, and then a minute later from the buyer's agent. All of them wanting to know, like, dude, what's going on with the loan? And you had to just, like, that's what I spent my day doing. And that's exactly the kind of company I never wanted to be a part of. And so why I set this up, and why we engineered a process where before TRID, which most of you weren't here before TRID, but John remembers before TRID, Jacqueline remembers before TRID, is you could get the figures to the title company an hour before, like an hour after the closing started, and you could still close, right? Like the customer never had to see the final numbers. That now TRID is like 4 days, 3 days before closing, right? You could do that like an hour before closing. So we had a guarantee that if we would get the figures to title 3 days before closing, or we'd pay the buyer $500. I engineered that process because I hated the other thing, right? Like I hated living that way. So my belief is that you should care about that, because that's why we have this #1 ranking at experience.com. I know how important it is for your business to have 5-star reviews and have your customers think you're awesome, because if you don't get repeat and referral business, you should fire me. If you don't get repeat and referral business because of the way your loans close here, fire me. I would fire me. That's why I left those other companies. And so those are the things that are important to me. And that's what we believe in here at Zenith. And that's why we run the company that we do. If I don't share that story with you, you never get a chance to figure out who I am as a person and whether or not you should work here. And honestly, if you don't know those things, then, and now, my question back to you all is like, what does your customer know about what you believe? Have you shared it? Because if you don't, you've missed out on an opportunity to create that connection with them, to make them go like, wow, you're fucking awesome. I want to work with you. Like, I hope you all ended when I just finished my conversation, went, wow, Dave, you're awesome. I want to work with you. I hope that's what you did. But if
I'm fucking jacked, Dave, let's go. Keep talking, baby.
So thanks, Hopper. So gotta love Hopper. So the point is I want you to know that, because that's important. I want you to know what's important to me. because we should be aligned in our values, and you should be aligned in your client, and your client needs to be aligned in yours. Because if you get the chance to share that, and this one other thing, and Jonathan will be coaching on this a little bit later today. One of the things that was so powerful when I really want to go back to selling. One of the things that was so powerful in my conversations with clients was like, I loved asking this question. And I don't know if people are asking this, but if you're not, you need to start asking. And this is in the discovery call before you've sent them a link to the applications. After you figured out what they're doing and why they're doing, let me ask you another question. What's important to this? Why is it, what's going on in your guys' lives right now that makes buying a house important to you? Help me understand that. Just share that with me. When you get them to tell you what is important about this, because it isn't money, it's family. It's family, and it's security, and it's a home, and it's all those things that aren't about buying a house. It's all the things about having a home of their own. And when you get them to share that with you, you have created such a deep connection. They will love you for that. And that's something that you should note in there, because they shared something really personal with you. This is something that any other lenders aren't doing, because they're all about the deal. I just want the deal. How much is it? What am I going to get? Like, who's cheaper and all that stuff. You take all of that out of that discussion. You certainly cut it back dramatically, because they want to work with the lender who knows them, and they know, and they trust, and you trust, right? Because as soon as somebody shares something like that with you, you've created a much deeper connection. I started doing that it doesn't matter when I started doing it. It had such a powerful impact on the conversations. I made sure that I included it in all my conversations going forward, and dramatically improved my conversion ratio, dramatically cut back on shopping. That's why whenever I hear about shopping, I was like, what the fuck? Why are they shopping you? All I can think of is, well, we're not creating a deep enough connection, because it becomes too transactional. And honestly, if they started the conversation, if they've come to you after talking to another lender and you already know that, and you can use, I really believe that you could use that conversation of having them share with you what's important to you about buying a house. Help me understand what's going on in your lives right now that buying a house is what you're doing and what you're trying for. And you could completely eliminate the other person from the transaction, because it would be so rare that another lender asked that same question. It would be really rare. And the fact that you got them to share that with you, and then you gave it up. Once they've shared that with you, that opens the door. It's like, can I just tell you why I do this? I'd love to share with you why I love this business so much. Thank you for sharing that with me. Whatever you say after that, it's got to be your story. I can help you craft that a little bit. If you want some help with this, if you've never taken the time to put something down, Jonathan started working on it yesterday, and dude, he shared it with Dean and I the first time that he shared it. And I looked at Dean, I was like, dude, that was fucking awesome. Like, I fucking work with you. And it was the first time that you did it. So it doesn't really matter what the story is of why you're doing this and why it's important. It matters that it's important to you, and that you gave them the opportunity to share it. So who would like to pipe up and share their thoughts on everything I just puked out?
I think
Can
that
you email that question? Because I'm driving, and I just
Happy to. I for sure do.
I've been meaning to do that in my goals call, and I feel like I haven't found the right way to say it, and that sounds really good. Thanks.
Right on. Go ahead, Christine.
I think people forget how big of a deal this is and how much money they're borrowing, because it's not tangible. So in all of my meetings, I was like, and just because you need to know more about the person that you're borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars from, here's a little bit more about me and why I do what I do. Here's a little bit more about Zenith. And it really puts in their head like, gee, this is a really big deal. I should probably trust the person that I'm working with, and sometimes I compare, you should trust your lender like you trust your doctor, right? To cut you open. You're borrowing a ton of money from somebody.
Ooh, that's good. I like that. I like that. The doctor who's going to cut you open. That's a great visual. That's a great visual.
I mean, you're borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, if you don't know the person and the company that you're doing that with, and I don't think people think about it that way until you tell them that. So I always include that in my pre-approval meetings.
Right on. I love that. Thank you. Who else?
Mm-hmm.
Jack, John, you got to be using something like, you've been doing this long enough. You got to be using something like this. Do you use because you're pretty good at the discovery call. I know you're good at getting the customer to share a lot of information with you.
pretty much say exactly what you said. I don't, you just repeated my lines.
Do you talk about, what do you sell? What do you share with them about you and who you are and why, how, what you care about? Like, what do you share? Do you mind sharing what you share?
I don't have a script for that, but I mean, I do talk about,
He's a mortgage master, and that's all he needs to say. People just bow
I do
down.
talk about how many, the number of transactions.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal, Cal. I'm just the best there ever was. No one can touch my, no one can touch my shit.
The question you mentioned about asking them why they're doing this is really powerful and something that I do actually forget to ask a lot, but it's something as you go through the relationship, becomes really apparent, especially when you're like doing numbers for different houses they're looking at and talking about why they like one particular house over the other. But it's really just being engaging and being somebody they want to talk to, really at the end of the day.
Cool. So you don't have like a specific scripting that you use for, here's why this is important to me.
I'll think about it. I might, but nothing really.
Probably have something that I'm guessing that you have. It's not something that I've asked anybody to do before. So kudos to you, Christine, for already having it built into your process.
I just used my first experience for buying a house too, and how it didn't lead me to this job really, but it really changed Alyssa and I's life. We took out a loan from our 401k for $4,000, and 2 years later sold the house and made 120. And I thought if I could help more people do that and realize what they could do with real estate, that's what I wanted to do, because it totally changed my family's life.
One of the stories, that's an awesome story to share. One of the stories that I used to share was I bought 3 homes before I got in the mortgage business, and all 3 times, nobody explained anything to me. They put a fee sheet in front of me. They said, it's this and this and this and this and this and this, and this is your payment. And I was like, okay. And this is how much money you need. I was like, okay. I just looked up at the guy. I remember doing this the first time. I was like going, okay. Not the first time, it was the second time. The first time I met with no one, honestly, because it was with a new build. I was buying a home from Melody Homes, which later got bought by KB, but I didn't even meet with a lender. Like the builder, like I talked to somebody over the phone, and I sent him a bunch of shit. And I've told people the story. I go, literally the day, like 3 days before closing, and most of our stuff is packed and we're moving, we think, and I'm getting phone calls from the lender asking me for W-2s and pay stubs. And I was like, I'm getting a loan, right? Because it didn't make any sense to me that you'd need that 3 days before I'm supposed to close. And I don't know shit about the mortgage business at the time, but that's what I think. And then the day of the closing, I got a phone call. I can remember this vividly. We're leaving from the closing to move into this new house because it was our first house. I was 26, Lori's 24, Jacqueline's, I could see Jacqueline's little head in the moving van in her car seat. I could see it because like the phone used to be stuck to you guys don't know this, the phone used to be stuck to the wall. You didn't walk around with your cell phone. So I'm in the house looking out the window, looking out the front door, and Jacqueline, and they're telling me that I need $1,000 more than they told me I was going to need. And guess who didn't have an extra $1,000 that day? Me. I didn't have an extra $1,000. I'm like, I don't have that much. Like, well, that's how much you need. And I was like, okay. And so the fun part was I get to call my dad. I'm 26 years old. I go, Dad, I need an extra $1,000. You goddamn kids make my ass tired. You know that? Because he has to give it to me or I'm moving in with him. And so, so I get the extra $1,000. I move into that house, and then everything went away because I bought the house and everything went away. It was like, because once you close, you forget all the shit. And until 7 years later, I'm buying my second house, and it was like different builder, different lender, same fucking process. It was horrible. And so I wouldn't spend this much time explaining this to a customer, but all 3 times I needed more money than I was told. And it was always a last minute fiasco. And it was always the very last minute, like an hour before closing, they were telling me how much money I needed. I don't want my clients to have that kind of experience, and we've engineered our process to make sure it doesn't go like that. So when you can put yourself in it, one of the other questions that I would ask when somebody would share with me, when you get somebody to share with you what's important about buying a house, I would ask them this question, and then I would create this was the conversion script was, let me ask you a question. when my wife and let me ask you a question. Does it seem like everybody you talk to about buying a house makes it seem like it's no big deal and it's easy and just go do it, but it's actually kind of a little overwhelming and scary? Do you feel that way at all? Almost like no, like without fail, the customers would always go like, yeah, it's exactly how I feel. It was almost like I gave them permission now to not be so focused on all the shit that I don't want them to focus on, which is what's your rate? And I was like, yeah, that's exactly. It's like, you know what? That's exactly how my wife and I felt when we bought our first house. Here's what happened. And I told kind of short Reader's Digest version of the story I just shared. And then like, let me tell you how I work. And then everything I say after, let me tell you how I work is how it's going to be. And when it leads to the end of the conversation, which is like, when I'm done explaining this process to you, you're going to say, thank you. No one's ever explained that to me before. How does that sound? It's like, that sounds great. You have to really done a lot to eliminate shopping at that point, because like you sound like, I want to work with you because you've just made me feel safe and you connected with me. You shared with me that you were just as scared and vulnerable as I am right now, but I don't want to say I didn't tell anybody I was afraid. I had to act like I knew what I was doing, because you don't want to sit down with a banker and go like, I don't know how this works. Yeah, you have to sit down with a banker and go like, okay, so what's the deal? And so that's think about what your customers are going through. It's a big deal. I just think so go back. If you hadn't watched the video, please watch it again. And then let's challenge everybody. I would like maybe next week for some people to share what their scripting is going to be on having this, how they're going to have this conversation with real estate agents and with clients or potential referral partners and clients, so that you can create a deeper connection. And really, I think it's going to go a long way towards improving your conversion ratios when it comes to shoppers. I think you're just going to cut down a lot on shopping. Anybody else have anything they want to add or questions?
I was going to say, I always tell people that I've been in the mortgage business for however many years. And when I bought my first house, I pre-approved my own loan and I knew the entire process, and I still cried when I wrote the offer because I was freaked out. And every time, and I've pre-approved my own loan for every year since then, all the other houses that I've ever bought. And I've been doing this for 16, 17 years now. And I still get just like a little bit freaked out. Like, did I do it right? What if somebody takes a loan from me? What if something happens? What if? And it's like, it doesn't matter how many times you buy a house. It's never not scary. So ask as many questions as you need to. I will explain this to you as many times as you want to. Like, don't not ask a question. And then I try to make, those of you that know me well, I'm a smart ass. So I try to make light of the conversation throughout my explanation of like the fees and stuff. So I'll talk about like the guarantees and I'll be like, I overestimate and we guarantee them, blah, blah, blah. And I go, plus you tend to like me a lot better if it's less than what I told you it was going to be. So I kind of like you to like me at the end of this, because then you'll tell your friends about me. And most of the time that also, it's like a breaking the ice kind of conversation, and it lightens the mood a little bit. You got to read the room. Not everybody thinks I'm funny, but it does work. It helps them just connect to me a little bit more so that they're just a little bit more comfortable. And that seems to help quite a bit too.
Right on.
I love how you said read the room too, because I think everybody does take a different approach when you're talking about your why. If this is their fifth house or their first house, are you going to be more of the advisor, more of like, this is why our loan process is better. So it can be the same why, but it has to be tweaked for everybody that you talk to.
For sure.
Well, and I encourage you, if it's not their first time buying and you didn't do the previous transaction, ask them if there was anything about the previous transaction that went really well that you can replicate, or that didn't go very well that we want to make sure we don't repeat.
That's a great question. That's a great question. This goes back to what I said earlier. It's not just one thing that you guys do. It's everything that you do. Everything matters. Everything adds up. Every interaction with the client, every email, every text, every phone call, whether you make the call on time, like I said, it's dramatically different than, you being 1 minute earlier or 3 minutes late. You send a really strong message if you're 3 minutes late, and that is that you're not prompt. And that's a strike against you, whether or not I'm not saying you'd never get a loan from somebody you did that to. I'm saying that your odds went down. You stacked the deck against you. You made it harder for yourself. So don't do that. And then learn this stuff, right? Like, making $500,000 a year is not supposed to be easy, and it's not, right? Especially in 2023. So It should be hard. It should be, but it's fun. Like when you can connect, it's one of the things that I told Jonathan yesterday. The thing I miss about selling more than anything else is the relationships with my clients. I love that part of it. Because when you got somebody to share that about what they did, you became you were friends. You just became friends, and you did their kids' loans. That was the best part. It was like you started doing loans for their kids 15 and 20 years later. That's what the coolest thing about this business, I think. What else? That's it. I didn't email everybody because not everybody knew about this, but I've been working for the last 4 months on getting us approved with a company called Huntington Bank. Huntington has a footprint here in Colorado now. They didn't used to. And so they bought TCF Bank. And so one of their reps reached out to us via Jacqueline, although this guy reached out to me in January and I somehow missed the email. And I mentioned that to him yesterday. And he goes, yeah, I targeted you guys because you're the company I wanted for this product. So they have a doctor loan program that is 100% financing for doctors with no MI. And they do something really funky with student loans. I don't know exactly what it is, but they don't count them the same way. I don't know. I don't know. You're going to have to learn the guidelines. All I know is it's a smoking product. And Giuseppe's been drooling ever since I told him I was working on this, because he did a bunch of those he had one particular agent that he lost in the process because she was just targeting medical professionals. And when we lost the product, because we had it when we were with Hallmark, and we only had it with Hallmark because they were in Indiana and Huntington Bank is in Ohio. And so anyway, their footprint expanded, and that's how we ended up with it. So we got the approval notification yesterday. They also have a really aggressive product for their Community Reinvestment Act requirements. So if you don't know what that is, banks are all required to prove that they're making lending happen in underserved areas, and not to necessarily underserved clients, because there's no income restrictions on this program, but it's for certain zip codes around the metro area. And I'll have a whole map that you'll be able to see with this, but the incentive when this started was 100 basis points improvement in pricing, either in closing cost credits or rate, and then not a point in rate, but a point to the rate. And then like 2 or 3 weeks ago, it changed to 50 basis points. Huntington changed it to 50 basis points. Still going to give us an opportunity. It's not a product that everybody has or that everybody knows how to sell. There's lenders that have it in our market, but I was talking to my rep yesterday and he goes, nobody sells it that well. He goes, and you guys really do target you guys, because he checked our volume from the previous year, and we had done a significant portion, something like 30 or 40% of our volume was done in those zip codes. What it gives you the ability to do is if you can find the zip codes and it match where we'll be able to use that product, you start calling listing agents in that zip code. It's like, hey, I got to show you something that I have a product that I can sell for your house that I can do the financing on. I can offer the clients this. And so just a lot of opportunity between the doctor loan and then this special program that they have. So we're just working on getting the back end of it all set up. We've got to do training in operations for disclosing and funding. We're a non-delegated correspondent. What that means is we're not, Polly and Kelly won't be underwriting it. VIP underwriting won't be underwriting it. So we have to submit it to the investor, but that'll happen in our back room. But we still do closing and funding. And VIP does not have the product, so Spire won't have the product. And that's they don't want VIP. They wanted Zenith specifically. And so right on. So I'm pretty excited about that. You should be too. As soon as the more information that I get out, I'll get the information out to you as fast as I can once we're ready to do the training, and should be pretty fun. Casey, I would love for you to just briefly share what your experience was like with the Smart Cash program.
Yeah, honestly, I talked to Dave about this the other day, and I had a meeting with Kim afterwards to go over it, and we all sat back and kind of just said I was nervous because it was so easy. Xavi really took control. So long story short, we had a deal where we were under contract to purchase a home. They were selling their exit residence. And I had talked with Zabby ahead of time and just said, hey, you know, if their exit residence doesn't close, can we do this as a bridge? And they said, sure, we'll make an exception because the purchase was in Arizona. So great. Well, sure enough, the purchase falls through on their exit residence. And less than 10 days before closing, I call up Zabby and say, hey guys, this deal we talked about fell through. Can we get this done? They jumped in, talked to the clients, talked to the realtor, took everything over, got everything closed. I mean, just as smooth as could be. Clients were happy. They got their home. They were able to utilize the bridge. Their exit home's under contract, and they'll sell that second week of August. So I just highly recommend them, guys. This is not even close to what Revive was.
Oh,
It was super easy, very simple, and they communicated with me every step of the way of what was going on. We did not have to do anything. It was too easy. It was scary.
well, scary
That's
because of the
not the
shit.
norm.
Yeah, scary because of the shit show it was with Revive.
Right. So I was like, all right, when's the snag coming? When's the headache coming? And it never came. It was easy. So, have a conversation with them, guys. Share that with your agents. If you share that with your clients, if they're a little bit worried about, paying the fee for it, getting the home and paying that fee is going to be far better than not getting a home for 6 months.
Well, thank you, Casey. Guys, it's another great, unique value proposition that you can provide. It still doesn't, your why is just as important to be sharing, but this gives you a way. I know Christine had texted me last week that she finally got an appointment with an agent because of the bridge program. This is a great tool to be using to connect with agents like, hey, I know it's tough right now, but I've got another tool that we're having a lot of success with that is really working well. And let me come and talk to you about it. So there's another opportunity there for sure. So I'm excited about it. I'm really glad to hear that, Casey. Thanks for sharing that. I know Jay's really close with another client on this. So we'll just everybody share their wins with that if you can, because I know we just, get everybody comfortable using it. I think I sent you guys all that video. Make sure that you're selling it with you don't want to miss out on the market opportunity that this represents. And so, because the houses are going to continue to appreciate, there's just no inventory. I mean, we keep hearing it over and over again. So
I did a lunch and learn for that for a team on Wednesday. And if anybody else does that, make sure that you have Zabby there with you, towards the end for questions, because I got pummeled with questions on the contract side that I didn't know. So I had to set up a second meeting with Zabby to be there, but I know they're more than willing to come to the meeting or be there over Zoom. So if you guys do set that up, just make sure you take them with you, because you'll get questions you don't know the answer to. I did.
yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely do it because it's going to take a minute to learn all the ins and outs for sure. Right on. All right, everybody. That's it for today. I will, you'll get a recording of this. Thanks for participating. If you haven't watched that video, please do. If you need any help with crafting a why script, let me know. I'm happy to do it for you. I love doing it. It's super fun. All right. Have an awesome day, everyone.